The late-night subway passenger. The subway was empty, until he sat directly across from me, smiling like he knew a secret. It was nearly 1 a.m., and the underground station was dead silent when I stumbled down the stairs. I'd just finished a double shift, my feet numb, my head buzzing from fluorescent lights and exhaustion. The last train screeched in, its metal frame groaning like something alive. When the doors hissed open, the car was deserted. No voices. No music leaking from earbuds. Just the echo of my own footsteps as I stepped inside. The air was cold, faintly metallic, like damp coins. I sat near the center, slumped back, breathing slow, letting the rhythmic hum of the tracks carry me. My eyelids drifted shut. And when they opened again, he was there. A thin man in a long gray coat sat directly across from me. Not diagonally. Not a few seats away. Directly across, knees almost touching mine. He was smiling. Not a normal smile. It stretched too wide, like his face wasn't used to it. His eyes never blinked. I glanced around, half expecting to see other passengers, but we were alone. An entire subway car of empty blue plastic seats, and he chose the one in front of me. I tried looking away, pretending to scroll my phone. My hands were slick with sweat. When I looked back, his lips were moving. Silent. Slow. Forming words I couldn't hear. Something about that was worse than if he'd spoken. Every few seconds, the overhead lights flickered. And every time they did, he was closer. First 3 seats away. Then 2. My stomach twisted. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that I was too tired, that it was just tricks of light and motion. Then the train jolted hard and shuddered to a stop. We were deep underground, the tunnel swallowing every trace of sound. The air went still. The lights buzzed out. Emergency red strips flickered on along the floor, glowing just enough to see him, now crouched inches from my knees. His grin had widened. His teeth were pale and too many. My body locked. My breath was shallow, sharp in my chest. He tilted his head, staring up at me, and slid one hand into his coat pocket. Something in my brain snapped. The lights went out completely. 3 seconds. Total black. My heart slamming like it was trying to escape. When the lights returned, he wasn't in front of me. He was sitting directly beside me. His shoulder pressed against mine. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I ran. I shot to my feet, flung open the door between cars, and sprinted. The floor rattled beneath my boots, the walls shivering with speed. Wind blasted my face from the connecting seals. Behind me, no footsteps. No sound. That was worse. I tore through the empty cars until I reached the conductor's cabin. The small glass window was dark. No one inside. I dove in, slammed the door, locked it, and collapsed onto the cold floor. My body was trembling so hard I thought I might break apart. For the rest of the ride, I sat there listening to my own breath echo in that tiny metal box. Every flicker of the lights made my heart jump to my throat. The train finally lurched into the next station. The doors slid open to fluorescent light and distant voices. I ran. I didn't look back to see if he followed. I didn't look back at all. I climbed the station steps 2 at a time, out into the freezing night air, lungs burning. The city lights felt unreal, too bright, too far away from what just happened. I walked home shaking. Every passing face made my skin crawl, like any one of them could be him. I never took the subway again. It's been 2 years. I drive 2 extra hours every day just to avoid it. And sometimes, late at night, I'll be at a red light and glance in the rearview mirror, and swear I see that grin, glowing in the dark behind me. The man at the gas station. He smiled at me like he knew me, but I'd never seen him before in my life. I remember how cold the air felt that night. It was just past 1 a.m., and I was halfway through the drive back home from college, exhausted and running on caffeine fumes. The highway had been empty for miles, nothing but darkness pressing in on all sides. When my gas light came on, it felt like my stomach dropped with it. The station I found was barely more than a flickering sign and 2 lonely pumps sitting in the middle of nowhere. The kind of place that makes you double-check your doors. I pulled in, engine humming in the silence, and that's when I noticed it. An old blue sedan was parked at the opposite pump. A man leaned against it. He wasn't pumping gas. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't doing anything, just watching me. At first I tried to play it off. Maybe he was waiting on someone inside. I swiped my card, pretending not to notice how still he stood. He didn't blink. He didn't move. My skin prickled like it was trying to crawl off my bones. When I finished pumping, I decided to grab a drink from the store. I walked quickly, heart thudding, trying not to look back. The automatic door hissed closed behind me, and for a second I felt safer, until I heard it. The faint squeak of shoes on tile. I glanced over my shoulder. He was inside, 2 feet behind me. I froze. My brain screamed at me to say something, anything, but my mouth wouldn't work. He didn't speak. He didn't reach for anything on the shelves. He just followed. Every aisle I turned down, he turned down too, staying close enough that I could feel the cold air rush whenever he stepped forward. My hands shook as I fumbled my money at the counter. I didn't even wait for change. I shoved the door open, the night air slapping me awake, and speed walked to my car. The moment my door shut, I hit the lock button. His reflection appeared in my side mirror, framed in the flickering lights. Still smiling. I started the engine and pulled out fast. Relief washed through me like warm water, until headlights lit up behind me. That same blue sedan. My heart hammered. I told myself it was a coincidence. Just another traveler on the same road. But every turn I took, he took. When I sped up, he sped up. When I slowed down, he slowed too, hovering in my mirror like a shadow glued to me. I grabbed my phone to call someone. No signal. The road narrowed, twisting through black stretches of farmland, no houses, no lights, just 2 sets of headlights in the void. My mouth was so dry I could barely swallow. I had to do something. A closed diner appeared ahead, its neon sign dead but faintly glowing. I swerved into the cracked parking lot, throwing gravel. I parked crooked, pretending to talk on my phone, hoping it looked like someone was coming to meet me. His sedan crept in behind me and stopped, blocking my exit. The driver's door opened. He stepped out slowly. No rush. His boots crunched on gravel like gunshots. He kept one hand buried deep in his jacket pocket, the other swinging loose at his side. He walked toward me, smile frozen, eyes flat. I couldn't breathe. My hands gripped the wheel so hard they hurt. He got closer, and then a semi-truck roared past on the highway, its horn blaring like an air raid siren. The man's head snapped toward the sound. For the first time, his expression cracked. He turned and sprinted back to his car. Tires squealed. His headlights vanished into the darkness as if he'd never been there. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My whole body was shaking so hard I thought I might throw up. Finally, I forced myself to drive, hands locked at 10 and 2, eyes flicking between the mirrors every 2 seconds. I didn't stop until I saw the glowing sign of a police station. I pulled in, parked under the floodlights, and just sat there, shaking, watching the road. I stayed until the sky turned pale and the sun edged over the trees. That was 3 years ago. Even now, if someone follows me too closely on the road, my chest tightens and my hands go numb. I know it's probably nothing, probably just coincidence. But sometimes, when I glance into my rearview mirror, I swear I still see that smile. The woods photographer. I thought he was just taking pictures of nature, until I saw my face on his camera screen. It was mid-October, the kind of autumn afternoon that almost feels staged. The air was crisp enough to sting my lungs, and the forest burned with color, maples exploding in reds and oranges, the ground thick with damp leaves that sighed under every step. I was hiking alone, something I did often to clear my head. The quiet out there usually felt safe, like the world had paused just for me. That day, the silence felt heavier. I was halfway up the ridge trail when I first saw him. He appeared between two trees, just off the path, a tall man holding a massive camera, the kind professionals use. I startled, muttered a quick, "Hey," and gave a small wave. He didn't reply, didn't nod, didn't move, just raised the camera. I flinched at the sound. It was probably nothing, I told myself. Just another hiker, maybe a nature photographer. Still, I picked up my pace. The crunch of leaves beneath my boots grew faster. My breath came out white. A minute later, I turned. He was behind me now, walking slowly down the center of the path, lens aimed square at my back. I forced a smile, pretending not to notice, and veered onto a narrow side trail. The undergrowth closed in tight around me. I moved quickly, leaves snapping underfoot, trying to lose him. But the sound followed. Crunch, fuzz, crunch. Whenever I stopped, the forest went dead silent. No birds, no wind, nothing. My heartbeat filled the space like a drum. Then, behind me, closer this time, panic curled through my ribs. I spun around, but the trail was empty. I doubled back toward the main path, thinking if I just got back to the trailhead, to the parking lot, I'd be fine. My legs were trembling from adrenaline as I descended the ridge. Then I saw it. The earth should have been covered in my old footprints from the hike up. But they were gone. Every step I'd taken had been smudged out, replaced by his. Larger. Heavier. Right on top of mine. He'd been closer than I ever realized. I rounded a sharp bend and stopped cold. He was waiting, standing in the middle of the path, directly in front of me. His grin was too wide, stretched wrong across his face. He raised the camera like it weighed nothing and held it out toward me. The screen glowed faintly in the shadows. I saw photo after photo of myself. Me walking. Me tying my boots. Me looking over my shoulder, fear in my eyes. The last photo was of me, right now, turning in shock. He whispered almost gently, "You look better afraid." Then he lunged. Everything fractured into instinct. I swung. The camera cracked against his cheekbone with a hollow snap. He crumpled sideways, arms flailing. I didn't wait to see if he'd get back up. I ran. Leaves tore under my boots, my lungs screaming for air. Branches clawed at my jacket. My legs burned but didn't slow. Every muscle in my body was screaming go. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see if he was behind me. The trees blurred, spinning with each stride. My vision tunneled to the gravel of the parking lot, appearing through the trees like salvation. I fumbled my keys, nearly dropped them, then dove into my car and slammed the locks down. My breath came out in ragged sobs as the engine roared to life. As I tore out of the lot, I kept expecting to see him step from the tree line, smiling, blocking the road. But the forest stayed still. Too still. I drove until the woods turned into suburbs, until streetlights washed the darkness away. My hands were shaking so violently I had to pull over and throw up on the shoulder. It's been 3 years. I haven't hiked since. I can't even walk near woods without my chest tightening, ears straining for phantom footsteps behind me. I used to love the quiet out there. Now it just feels full of eyes. The ride-share driver. I realized too late that the man driving wasn't the same person from the app photo. It was just after midnight, that weird hollow hour where the world goes quiet but your thoughts get louder. I'd been at a friend's place on the other side of town, and I was too tired to take the train, so I called a ride-share. The app showed a smiling guy named Mark. Mid-30s, clean-shaven, bright blue sedan. License plate ending in 721. I remember staring at the photo, thinking he looked friendly. When the car pulled up, it was dark gray, not blue. The license plate ended in 724. I hesitated. The driver leaned over and waved quickly. "Yeah, the app's glitching tonight. Just hop in," he said. His tone was rushed, like he wanted me in fast. The night air bit cold through my jacket. I didn't want to wait 20 more minutes for another car. Against the screaming in my gut, I opened the door and got in. The moment it shut, regret sank in like a weight. The man wasn't smiling. He wasn't Mark. He didn't say a word as we pulled off the curb. I quietly opened the app, double-checking. Mark's car was supposed to be blue. 721. This wasn't him. The streets blurred by outside, dark and empty. The usual route home should have been straight back toward the city center. Instead, the map on my phone showed us veering off, deeper into the outer roads. I swallowed hard. "Hey, this is the long way, isn't it?" He didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the road, jaw tight. I tried texting my friend, but my phone showed no service. The locks on the doors clicked down. My heart jumped. Cold sweat slid down my back as the car turned off the main highway and onto a narrow, unlit stretch lined with empty fields. Nothing but blackness stretching for miles. I forced my voice to sound casual. "So, how long have you been driving for the app?" He smiled faintly, eyes still forward. "Long enough," he said. The way he said it made my skin crawl. I kept glancing at the glowing lock icon on the door, trying to remember how the child safety locks worked from the inside. My hands were trembling so badly I had to clench them to stop. Then he spoke again quietly. "Don't worry. We'll be there soon." My pulse roared in my ears. I looked around wildly, searching for lights, buildings, anything. There was nothing but cornfields and darkness. I needed to get out. "Hey, I think I'm gonna be sick," I muttered. "Could you pull over?" He didn't slow down. "Seriously, I'm gonna throw up in your car." I clutched my stomach dramatically. This time he sighed and eased onto the gravel shoulder. The second the tires stopped, I yanked the door handle. It stuck. My stomach plunged. It popped up. I shoved the door open, threw myself out, and hit the ground hard. Gravel tore at my palms and knees. I rolled down into the ditch as the car door slammed behind me. "Hey!" he shouted, voice sharp now. I didn't look back. I scrambled up, sprinting through the field, boots sinking in soft dirt. My breath came out in ragged gasps, lungs on fire. I could hear the engine rev, the tires spinning on gravel. Then fading. Then gone. The field swallowed everything in black silence again. I ran until I saw a distant glow of neon. A gas station. Civilization. I burst through the door, sobbing, barely able to speak. The clerk froze as I collapsed against the counter, words tumbling out. Wrong driver, locked doors, back roads. He called the police, but by the time they searched the area, the car was long gone. I never saw that man again. I never even found a record of the ride in my app history. Now, every time I order a ride, I triple-check everything. The driver's face, the car color, the plate number. Because that night I learned something. You don't know who's really behind the wheel until the doors lock. The hotel hallway. There were no other guests on my floor. So who kept knocking on my door at 3 a.m.? The hotel was one of those cheap roadside places with faded carpet and buzzing vending machines. I was on a last-minute work trip, exhausted and half delirious from driving all day. The parking lot was nearly empty when I checked in, just a few trucks scattered under the yellow lamps. The receptionist smiled as she slid the key card across the counter. "You've got the whole second floor to yourself," she said. She meant it like a perk. It didn't feel like one. The hallways were too quiet as I walked down them, suitcase wheels whispering on the threadbare carpet. The air smelled faintly of mildew. Every door I passed was dark, no light slipping from under them, no sound of TVs or voices. Just silence. My room was at the very end of the hall. The last door. Inside, the air was stale and cold. I cranked the heater and sat on the bed scrolling my phone. The thin walls hummed faintly, the only sound in the world. At some point, I must have dozed off, because when I blinked awake again, the clock read 3:02 a.m. and someone was knocking on my door. So slow, rhythmic. I lay perfectly still, staring at the ceiling. Maybe it was a mistake, wrong room. The knocking stopped, then started again. I got up quietly, bare feet sinking into the rough carpet, and peered through the peephole. Empty hallway. I stood there breathing hard, telling myself I imagined it. That's when the knocking came again, faster now. Still no one there. My skin prickled. I backed away, phone clutched in my hand. The knocks became harder, almost angry. Then the doorknob turned. I froze. It rattled gently at first, then twisted violently, shaking the whole door in its frame. I shoved the desk chair under the handle, heart slamming. And then, a whisper, right at the crack in the door. My name. So, drawn out. I went cold. No one here knew my name. I hadn't told anyone. The knob jerked hard. The door shuddered, the frame rattling like it might burst inward. I stumbled back, pressing myself against the far wall, eyes locked on the door as it jumped in its hinges again. Silence. Instant. Total. No footsteps walking away. No fading sound. Just stillness. I stood there until my legs went numb. Every second stretched too long. I kept waiting for another knock, for the chair to move, for something. Nothing. The heater buzzed faintly back to life. I sat on the floor with my back to the wall, staring at the door until the digital clock changed from 3:58 to 6:01. The sky outside the curtains had gone pale. I didn't even pack. I grabbed my bag and ran. Left the key card on the bed, the chair still wedged under the knob, the lights still buzzing. I didn't check out. I didn't look back at the hallway. I just drove. I didn't stop until the hotel was miles behind me, swallowed by trees and distance. I still don't know if it was someone trying to break in, or something else entirely. But I know this. I can't sleep in hotels anymore unless there are other guests around. Silence used to make me feel safe. Now it just means no one will hear me if something comes. The hitchhiker. He seemed grateful when I picked him up, until he asked how many people would miss me. It was just before sunset when I spotted him, a lone figure on the side of an empty desert highway, thumb out, backpack slung low on one shoulder. I hadn't seen another soul for over an hour, and the silence of the desert was starting to press on me like a weight. I almost drove past, but he looked tired. Harmless. So I slowed down. Gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled onto the shoulder. The hot air wavered off the pavement as he stepped forward, smiling faintly. "Thanks," he said quietly, ducking into the passenger seat. His voice was soft. Flat. As soon as he closed the door, a strange chill ran through me. We drove in silence at first. The sun bled into the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. The world outside felt vast and hollow. After a few minutes, he broke the silence. "Where you headed?" "Back home," I said. "Long drive." He nodded. "Alone?" The question caught me off guard. "Yeah," I said, forcing a laugh. "Just me." He smiled again. It didn't reach his eyes. I tried to make small talk. Asked where he was going. "Somewhere down the road," he said. No specifics. No town name. Just somewhere. Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. I noticed he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. His hands rested on his knees, very still. Then he started asking more questions. "Got family waiting for you? Live alone? Anyone know you're out here?" His tone was calm, but something sharp hid under it, like he was measuring my answers. I laughed them off, saying yeah, lots of people knew where I was. That my boyfriend was expecting me. That I had friends tracking my location. He didn't respond. Just stared out at the darkening horizon, lips twitching like he was thinking hard. Then, without a word, he reached into his bag and pulled out a large hunting knife. He set it on the dashboard gently. Like it was nothing. My heart lurched into my throat. He didn't even look at me. Just kept watching the road, fingertips brushing the blade's edge. My palms were slick on the steering wheel. My breath came shallow and fast, like my lungs were shrinking. We drove in silence for what felt like hours, though it was probably minutes. Then he spoke again. "How many people would notice," he said softly, "if you didn't show up tonight?" My blood went cold. The air in the car thickened like it was turning solid. I forced a laugh. "A lot," I said quickly. "Like, way too many." He finally looked at me. His eyes were flat and unreadable. The knife gleamed in the dying light. I don't remember deciding what to do. I just acted. I slammed the brakes. The tires screamed. He lurched forward, grabbing the dash. "Get out," I said, voice shaking. He didn't move. I threw the car into reverse, jerking the wheel violently. The car swerved across the pavement. He shouted, grabbing the door for balance. "Get out." I braked hard again. The door flew open as he stumbled out into the dust. I floored the gas. Gravel sprayed as I shot forward, headlights bouncing wildly. In the mirror, he stood in the middle of the highway, just watching. Not yelling, not running, just watching. Then he shrank into the distance and was gone. I drove until I saw a glowing rest stop sign and nearly collapsed when I stumbled inside. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely explain what had happened. The clerk called the highway patrol, but by the time they reached that stretch of road, it was empty. No one was there. Now, whenever I see a hitchhiker, my hands lock on the wheel. I tell myself to keep driving. And I do. Because that night I learned something. Kindness can get you killed. The mall parking lot. Everyone else was gone. But his car stayed parked right next to mine the whole time. It was a winter evening. the kind where the air stings your lungs and your breath drifts like smoke. I'd just finished closing up at the retail store where I worked inside the mall. The corridors were dead silent as I walked out, the echo of my boots following me through the vast emptiness. The main lights had gone out. Only the dim security bulbs glowed, making the mannequins in the display windows look like they were watching me. I pushed through the heavy glass exit doors and stepped into the parking lot. The cold hit like a slap. The lot was nearly empty, blanketed in a thin crust of ice. Every car was gone, except two. My little silver sedan and a black SUV parked directly beside it. Its engine was running. The windows were tinted dark, so dark I couldn't see if anyone was inside. As I stepped forward, its headlights suddenly turned off. Like it was hiding. A quiet voice in my head whispered, "Don't go near it." I tightened my grip on my keys and walked faster, trying to look calm. My footsteps crunched sharply on the ice. My heart was slamming so hard it felt like it echoed in the empty lot. When I got within 10 feet of my car, the SUV's driver's side door opened slightly. Just a crack. Then clicked shut again. I froze. The air felt too still, like the whole world was holding its breath. I shoved myself into motion, fumbling my keys, yanking my car door open and slamming it behind me. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the key fob as I hit the lock button. Silence. Then the SUV's engine growled back to life. Its headlights stayed off as it slowly rolled forward, directly blocking the lane ahead of me. A cold wave of dread flooded me. I reversed. My tires squealed on the ice. The SUV reversed too, mirroring me. My throat went dry. I tried inching forward, then sharply turning left to go around it. It lunged forward, cutting me off again, boxing me in completely. My mind was spinning. Should I honk? Call someone? My phone was buried in my bag and my hands were shaking too hard to grab it. I had one chance. I slammed the brakes like I'd crashed. The sudden screech echoed across the empty lot. The SUV jerked to a stop, as if startled. I didn't hesitate. I floored the gas and swerved hard to the right, skidding past its bumper. My tires screamed against the ice as the SUV's headlights flared to life behind me, blinding in my mirror. It followed. 2 blocks. 3. Its headlights glued to my back, growing larger every second. My breath came in ragged gasps, tears blurring the road. Then, suddenly, it turned off down a side street. Gone. The darkness swallowed it whole. I kept driving, heart hammering, until I saw the floodlit parking lot of a police station. I pulled in shaking, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left. I sat there until my breath evened out enough to walk inside. The officer at the front desk listened calmly, nodded, and said they'd send a patrol around the mall. But I could tell from his expression he didn't expect they'd find anything. I still don't know who was in that SUV, or why they waited until everyone was gone. Now, I never walk to my car alone, not even in broad daylight, because I know how fast the world can turn empty, and how fast someone can decide your prey. The apartment's stairwell. I always thought the footsteps behind me were just neighbors, until they started copying mine. It was late, close to midnight, when I got back to my apartment building. The kind of late where the city finally goes quiet, like the whole world exhales. The stairwell was colder than usual that night. The kind of cold that feels wet, that creeps through your clothes. The lights overhead buzzed faintly as I started climbing the first flight, my boots clapping softly on the cracked concrete steps. The echo followed me as always. But this time, there was something else under it. A second set of footsteps. Softer. one beat behind mine. That, that, that. I froze halfway up the landing. Silence. The stairwell swallowed the sound completely, leaving only the low hum of the fluorescent bulbs. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe my imagination, maybe just echoes bouncing weird off the walls. I forced a small laugh to break the tension. It sounded too loud. I started walking again. That. They came back. Perfectly timed, exactly one beat after each of mine. My chest tightened. I turned fast, peering down through the stairwell. The flights spiraled away into darkness, all the way to the ground floor. Empty. Hello. I called. My voice cracked against the concrete and fell flat. No reply. Just one more faint creak from the stairs below me. Closer. I spun back and hurried up the next flight, heart hammering, blood roaring in my ears. My key was cold in my sweaty palm. I just needed to reach my floor. My door. Get inside. The stairwell light above me flickered once, then went out. Darkness crashed down like water. The air felt thick, heavy in my throat. And then the footsteps started running. Rapid. Violent. Clawing up the steps behind me. I bolted. My bag slammed against my hip as I tore up the stairs, hands slipping on the cold metal railing. My boots pounded the concrete in frantic, uneven rhythm. They were getting closer. I could feel the vibrations in the floor with each slam of their feet. I reached my landing and yanked my keys out, hands shaking so hard they scattered across the floor. I dropped to my knees, snatching at them, heart stuttering like it might stop. The footsteps were right behind me, close enough to move the air. I jammed the key into the lock, twisting until it caught, and threw the door open. I dove inside, slammed it shut, and twisted the deadbolt just as the doorknob jerked violently from the other side. It rattled. Over and over, the metal clanging against the frame. I backed away, gasping, staring at the knob as it twisted and shook like someone was trying to tear it off. It stopped. Silence. Total. Not even retreating footsteps. Just nothing. I stood there, frozen, listening to the blood pound in my ears until the sound became the only thing left. Minutes passed. Or hours. I couldn't tell. Eventually I locked the chain, the deadbolt, every latch I had, and retreated into the bathroom. I sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the tub until the first light leaked pale and thin through the blinds. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. When the sun finally rose, the world outside sounded normal again. Cars passing, birds chirping. I didn't believe it. Even now, I refuse to use that stairwell. I'll wait 20 minutes for the elevator rather than walk up those steps alone. Because silence used to mean no one was there. Now it just means they're close enough to match my steps. The laundromat. I was alone in the laundromat until I saw someone's reflection behind me in every machine door. It was 2 a.m. when I decided to go. My dryer had finally given up, and I needed clean clothes for work. It felt stupid even as I grabbed the laundry basket, but the thought of showing up in yesterday's uniform felt worse. The streets were empty, the stoplights cycling for no one. The laundromat sat at the end of a dead strip mall, its buzzing sign casting a pale blue glow over the cracked pavement. I parked under the flickering light and hesitated, staring through the wide glass windows. No one inside. Just rows of silver machines humming quietly under harsh fluorescent lights. The second I stepped in, the air wrapped around me cold and damp, like wet coins. I fed quarters into a machine and sank onto one of the plastic chairs, the hum of the tumblers filling the silence. My phone barely had a signal, and for once I didn't mind. For a while it was peaceful. Then one of the machine doors behind me slowly clicked open by itself. I jumped at the sound. It wasn't running. I got up, pushed it closed, and sat back down, brushing it off as a draft. When I glanced up again, my heart stuttered. The curved chrome reflection of the machine in front of me showed a shape, tall human-shaped, standing just behind my chair. I spun around. Nothing. Empty aisles. Silent machines. I told myself it was just the weird warped reflections and rubbed my eyes. When I looked back at my phone, the screen was black. Dead battery. A sharp chill ran through me. I stood to leave, grabbing my damp clothes from the dryer, but when I tried the front door, it didn't move. It had no lock, no latch. It just wouldn't open. I pushed harder. The glass barely flexed. The hum of the machines had stopped. Silence swelled, pressing against my eardrums. I turned slowly. Every reflection in the silver doors showed the same thing. A man, tall, motionless, standing directly behind me. But when I looked with my eyes, nothing. The air went icy. My phone buzzed suddenly in my hand, lighting up on its own. The screen showed a live camera preview. There he was, standing an inch behind me. I felt breath on my neck. Empty. Every machine door snapped open at once. The lights overhead buzzed, flickered, then went out. But I couldn't breathe. Then a flash, just one. All the reflections showed him. Right at my shoulder. Closer now. No eyes. No mouth. Just a blur of pale skin and darkness. I stumbled backward, slamming into the chairs, scrambling for the door. My hands slipped on the glass, my heart jackhammering so hard I thought I might pass out. The lights exploded back on. I was lying outside on the sidewalk. Cold concrete bit through my clothes. My head throbbed like I'd blacked out. Through the glass, I saw my clothes still tumbling in the machines. The door was closed again. The hum was back. Like nothing had happened. I didn't go back inside. I climbed into my car with shaking hands and drove until the laundromat was just a pinprick of blue in the mirror. I couldn't stop shaking for hours. I still don't know if I passed out, or if something else put me outside. I only know one thing. I drive 30 minutes out of town to do laundry now. And I never go alone. The bookstore stranger. He never bought anything. Just stood in the same aisle watching me every night I worked. I used to love the quiet of evening shifts at the bookstore. The soft hum of the heater. The faint smell of paper and dust. The way the world outside faded into the dark while I was cocooned inside, surrounded by stories. It felt safe. Until he started coming in. The first night, I barely noticed him. A tall man in a gray coat, black shoes, hood pulled low. He drifted toward the horror section and stood there for nearly an hour. Never spoke. Never picked up a book. When closing time came, I flicked the lights to signal we were done. He didn't react. Only when I stepped closer did he turn and walk out without a word. I assumed he was just odd. But he came back the next night. Same clothes. Same time. Same aisle. And the night after that. Always standing between the same two shelves, facing me through the thin gaps in the books. Just watching. I tried to ignore it, but every time I glanced up from the register, he was already looking. Unblinking. On the fifth night, I decided to confront him. "Hey," I said gently, forcing a smile. "Do you need help finding something?" He didn't answer. He turned and walked straight out, coat brushing the shelves. The bell above the door jingled once, sharp in the stillness. That was the only sound. The next evening, I walked in and froze. There was a book sitting open on the counter. I hadn't left it there. Its cover was blank, but inside, printed in small fading type, was my full name. My stomach lurched. The bell hadn't rung. No one had entered yet. I was alone. The lights flickered overhead and went out. The silence became physical, pressing on my chest. I pulled out my phone, turning on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the black. It caught him crouched behind the counter. Close. Too close. His face was pale in the harsh white light, eyes glinting wetly. He smiled. "I was just waiting," he whispered. His voice was thin, like dry leaves. "For everyone else to leave." He stood in one slow motion, towering over the counter, the edge of his coat dragging against the floor. I didn't speak. I ran. I slammed into the door shoulder first, the bell above it screaming as I burst out into the icy night air. My feet slipped on the frost-slick pavement as I sprinted across the dark parking lot. I didn't stop until I locked myself inside my car, gasping, watching the bookstore's front windows. Nothing moved inside. The lights flickered back on. Empty. I sat there shaking until the sun began to rise, pale and colorless over the strip mall. Then I drove home. I didn't tell my boss. I didn't go back for my last paycheck. I never set foot in that bookstore again. Even now, years later, if I'm alone in a quiet room and hear the sound of pages turning, my chest tightens and my vision tunnels. Because I know what silence can hide.